Hi, everyone. Welcome who's just joined us online. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Aloha, everybody. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. We're ironing out final technology and letting, if you don't mind, just hang tight and we'll get started shortly. Thanks. I'll just steal it back. My pen's up.
I have one.
Oh, it is actually in the deal. I think I'm kind of the sign-in sheet. Okay, I've got 9 o'clock. Honey, are you seeing other people rolling into the waiting room? Or you're letting folks in as they arrive?
Yeah, I'm letting folks in as they arrive. So I don't see anybody waiting in the lobby right now. Oh, Joaquin is here. I think a few more people are coming in, so if we want to give them a few more minutes, it's up to you.
Yeah, that's one or two to get oriented. These screens.
Welcome those of you who have just joined online. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. The door's closed. I guess that means we should get started.
Sure. Mhm.
Everybody, thank you for taking the time to join us. As you know, you got the agenda. This is a 3.
Your mic went out.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Nope, Katie,
can-
we can hear you now.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
That is live.
Oh, okay. That was weird. Anyway, I was just saying gratefulness and mahalos to everybody for taking the time to be here. We know your time is valuable. These are important issues to the state, and we really value your input through this process as we embark on an update to the solid waste management plan for the state. My name is Katie Cullison. I'm a planner with PBR Hawaii. We're based here in Honolulu, and I'll just be helping to facilitate this meeting. And we've got others here that will be introducing themselves that are technical experts in this realm. So without further ado, I will properly share my screen now, and we'll get started. Thanks for bearing with us on technology too, even though we've been in COVID for a couple of years. Seems like still learning how it all works to do hybrid meetings. So hopefully now you're seeing our meeting agenda on your screen. And we'll start today with introductions. We'll start with state and then our task force members that are present, and then any other members of the public or other agency folks that are here to observe and participate in the meeting. We'll talk about the purpose of this task force and the plan update. And then go into a little icebreaker exercise that hopefully we can help better integrate our in-person and online task force members together. Then I keep clicking the wrong button to advance. And then our agenda will move on to the meat of the.
Oh,
Stream
Katie,
topic.
we can't see your screen.
Oh. One moment. I think I lost my internet connection. Can I join your guys' guest Wi-Fi?
Yes, that's what I'm on.
Yeah.
That works. There's no password.
No password?
No.
Okay, apologies. I thought I was being smart by connecting to my, my personal hotspot. Okay. Sunny, can you help me out and let me know what you're seeing?
Yes. I'm still not seeing your screen.
I need to rejoin this meeting.
Yes.
All right, so let me in, please.
Oh, got you.
Thanks for bearing with me, everyone. Like I said, we're still.
It says you're in, Katie.
Okay. I am working to share my screen.
Yep, now we see it.
Okay, so just for a visual,
Very good.
there's the first part of the agenda. Here's the second that I was just talking through. And I'm going to put it back on a better display for you all. Now, are you seeing me in presentation mode?
Yes.
Thanks. Okay, this is a 3-hour meeting and I don't make it any longer. Let's begin with introductions, starting with folks, our hosts here, State of Hawaii Department of Health staff. Lane.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Lane Otsu, planner with Department of Health, Office of Solid Waste Management. Thank you for joining us.
I'm Mike Burke. I'm also with the Department of Health Solid and Hazardous Waste Branch, Office of Solid Waste Management. I work with Lane.
Hello, I'm Raven Jimenez, and I work in Mike.
Thank you. That's our state staff that are supporting this project. We have other state staff that are on the task force. Then I'll turn it over to the folks from Tetra Tech. Cesar?
Good morning, all. Cesar Leon, Tetra Tech Solid Waste Planning Manager. Thank you.
And Christian?
Yes, aloha. My name is Christian Ferguson. I'm also with Tetra Tech. I'm a solid waste and recycling planner.
And then supporting us all behind the scenes, Sunny?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sunny Rosario. I'm a planner with PBR Hawaii, and I will be your little tech control room. So if you have any problems, people online, feel free to put it in the chat or let me know. Thanks, all.
Thank you. And again, my name is Katie Cullison, and I'm a planner at PBR Hawaii, and just pleased to be supporting you all. I'd like to move into introductions of our task force members. And this is a Sunshine Law meeting, so I'm going to do like roll call style to make sure that we are keeping everything recorded and correctly. So I'm just going to start from the top, knowing that we don't have a full complement of the task force today. And those of you on the task force, I'm not seeing as much of the meeting camera. If you don't mind flipping on your camera when you say hello, if you can, if you have that capability, that would be great. And so I'll just start in alphabetical order of first names, which begins with Ahmad from Energy Recovery Administrator from City and County of Honolulu.
Hello, good morning.
Thanks for being here, Ahmad. And Allison Fraley, Environmental Services Manager, County of Kauai.
Aloha, good morning, everyone.
Aloha, thank you for joining us, Allison.
Glad to be here.
Dominic Enrique from General Manager of RRR Recycling.
Hi, Dominic's here.
See all the people on the screens. This is awesome. Glenn Haas, Engineer, Department of Health, Solid Waste Engineer. Aloha, Glenn. Environmental Compliance Coordinator from PVT. Joe is not able to make it. Christine Kubat, Executive Director of Recycle Hawaii. She gave us notice that she would not be here, so just making sure. Nicole Chatterson is the Director of Zero Waste Hawaii.
Good morning.
Hey, Nicole, aloha. Ramsey Mansauer, Director, County of Hawaii, DEM. Okay, we had notice from Ramsey that he probably wouldn't make it.
I just wanna know, I see, Christian Chance logged in. He is from, County of Hawaii.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Christian Chance.
I'm not sure if, he's been, I don't know if Ramsey designated him as an alternate or just to sit in, but
Okay.
I see him in.
Christian, we'll note that
Okay.
you're here, and then you guys, we can talk and see if you're technically Ramsey's proxy for today's meeting. And sort that out in our notes. Unless you know, and then you can tell us. And then Robert Schmidt, Deputy Director, County of Maui, DEM.
Yeah, good morning, all.
Thanks for being here. And finally, in the W's, Wayne Tanaka, Director, Sierra Club, Hawaii Chapter.
I think, I see, Kimo Franco. Kimo, are you speaking? Oh, there, you're unmuted now.
I was speaking, but I guess I was muted. Yeah, Wayne Tanaka is on paternity leave, so I'm here in his place for the Sierra Club.
Awesome.
David Kimo Franco.
Thank you. We'll note you as sitting in for Wayne. Mahalo for being here. So that covers our named task force members. And so then if you have not yet, if you were not roll called, if you don't mind unmuting yourself, let's see if I can get a better handle on who else is in our guest list. If you haven't been called yet, why don't you raise your hand using the raise hand feature, and then I can call you out so you don't have to feel uncomfortable about talking over others. Ruta, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Ruta Jordans with Zero Waste Kauai.
Okay, Zero Waste Kauai. Okay, cool. And then any other guests? Christine?
Hello, Katie. It's Christine Arbogast, and I'm with Tetra Tech, also supporting on this project.
Hello, thank you for being here. Sorry, I was not seeing all the people in the room.
No worries.
On the introductions. So several other guests. Your hand, Christine. Okay, good. Joaquin, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Joaquin Wright with GHD, and I'm here going to speak a little bit later on end-of-life tire pathways. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Sunny, if you're
Yes. We had a few other people join us.
Well, folks are,
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. I got a message on chat from Chris on the Big Island,
okay,
saying that Craig Kawaguchi is recycling coordinator TA and is subbing for Ramsey today. Yeah.
great,
Thank
got you.
Thank you, Chris.
So noted. Thank you. Nicole is typing something in the chat, so we'll just let that play out too.
And then Katie,
And
you
then,
had another person join as well.
so I guess for anybody else that has joined us in the Teams call, just for your awareness, we are recording this meeting and Sunny is recording our guest names. So just for your awareness, this meeting will be recorded as a Sunshine Law meeting. And Nicole noted that she's having some browser glitches and she will be back in joining us momentarily. So I think with that, I'd like to keep us moving on in our agenda. And I'm going to go on to our next slide. Is the purpose of the task force and plan update. Department of Health. Speak to the slide. Michael.
Yeah, so, you know, again, I want to go back to what Katie initially said, and thank you all for agreeing to help out, both on the task force as well as those of you who are in the public and are interested. You know, we're asking a lot of you and a big time commitment, and we recognize that. And we really, really appreciate all of your willingness to help. Insofar as the purpose of today and going forward, by law, we're required to update our state integrated solid waste management plan roughly after the approval of the municipal solid waste management plans. And while it's been a little spotty, both on our plan was about 20 years ago. Nicole, you're back?
Yep.
Okay. But we also know that, you know, on the county level too, it's not, I believe the counties are required to update every 10 years, and it's been a challenge, but, you know, I think that for us on the state side, we need to get going. We need to update our existing plan. There are potential solid waste issues that we foresee coming in the future. And then there are things like today's issue with tires that frankly continue to be a problem. And they're, you know, they're issued 20 years ago and they're issued now. And so, you know, as far as our expectations with this task force, you know, we're looking for good, solid, constructive feedback and implementable solutions. I think that, you know, it's important to recognize that we're a state agency and, you know, there's only so much that we can accomplish within the administration, within the bureaucracy, within the budget. And so while I think that, you know, it would be easy to just say EPR everything and call it a day, the reality is that's probably, that isn't going to be the solution. And we need to, and so what we're looking for from the task force is to keep that in mind and to recognize that we want to address these solid waste issues, and so we need to be able to be realistic about that in coming up with the solutions. And so I think that we've, you know, identified some really good people to be a part of this. We're inviting industry and regulated entities as well to participate when it comes time for their specific you know, subject matter jurisdiction. And hopefully we can craft some solutions to address some of these solid waste issues that have been plaguing us for a long time. And I think that's about it. But again, thank you very much. I really appreciate your help and participation.
Thanks, Mike. So just a reminder to everyone that's gathered here today that this, as Mike said, this is a state mandated plan. Such these meetings and the task force itself is mandated by law. So we're going to run these meetings using the Sunshine Law as our open meeting law guidance. And as you all know, the purpose is to help the public engage meaningfully in planning processes, such as this plan revision. All of our task force meetings will be subject to Sunshine Law. And so just a reminder to the folks that are on the task force that discussion on these topics and the meeting agenda items between yourselves is subject to this law and are required to be open meeting conversations. So if please refrain from those email conversations on the side or meeting and discussing on the side. If necessary, PIG, Permitted Interaction Group subcommittee. So that's the venue appropriate for having more in-depth conversations of subgroups of the task force. So if you don't mind just supporting us all in keeping this daylighted as the Sunshine Law intends, that would be wonderful. And of course, meeting ground rules, can just, practice our speech and conduct with aloha, of course, acknowledging each other's gifts and contributions to the conversation, whether or not you agree or disagree. If you can use the raise hand function to speak, Sunny, if you can help me just call any raise hands out, that would be helpful because I am looking at the presentation more than the speakers. So thank you for that. Please keep your mic off unless you're speaking. I think we're all getting pretty good at having Zoom meetings. Keep your mind open, be creative. Please listen to your counterparts, then respond. And of course, respect and aloha throughout. Mahalo. So we are going to move into an icebreaker exercise just to help us get to know each other and to be creative and to wake up before getting started into the meat of the program. But we had something noted in the agenda, but we thought we'd do a headliner since we have people coming virtually. A lot of our guests are virtual. So imagine yourself reading the Star Advertiser 20 years from now. What would the front page say about how we manage tire waste? Anybody is feeling creative? Please enter your response in the chat. And then Sunny, maybe you could monitor and read them for us.
Yes, will do.
And then, okay, cool. And then if Glenn or Ahmad, if you want to shout one out, you're on the owl and on camera, you're welcome to give us a headline for where tires will be in 20 years from now and what the public sentiment will be.
Sure, I think my headline would be, or my hope and dream anyway, would be that tire waste would have been significantly reduced or zero. My hope is that in 20 years, there won't be any tires. We'll all be, finding a way to move around where tires are no longer being generated and having to be disposed. That's really more of a hope and dream, but it's something to aspire to.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So folks on in the Teams chat, you could hear Ahmad hopefully say, shoot for no more tires in 20 years. If we shoot for the moon, we can get ourselves in that direction, right? And projected.
Yes, and we have a few entries from the chat too. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Katie.
No, go ahead. I was waiting for you.
Oh, yes. David said self-flying electric cars have eliminated the need for tires. Allison said tires no longer needed due to teletransport technologies. I like the theme of like very advanced technologies. That's great. I mean, like we're thinking advanced. Joaquin said all used tires now used for beneficial purposes in our infrastructure. It's very creative. And Ruda said Hawaii roads are permeable as a result of tires being used in roads. Ooh, some integrated solutions.
Awesome. I see Nicole's comment. Excellent public transit and pedestrian pathways have decreased driving and tire wear by 70%. Yes. Love it. Okay. Thank you guys for having a little fun with us and just kind of warming up to the topic and getting our, and then add in protected bike lanes too. Thank you. We're doing a lot of transportation work these days and couldn't agree more. So let me move right along into our existing conditions presentation. We're actually a little bit ahead of schedule, so that's awesome. I think this is when I turn it over to you, Cesar, or Christian, sorry. So let me advance the slide.
Thank you.
And I'm going to turn the mic over to Christian.
Wonderful. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I'm going to reintroduce myself. Again, my name is Christian Ferguson. I'm with Tetra Tech. I'm a waste and recycling planner. And we have been tasked with assisting the state to put together this particular solid waste task force on tires, as well as 9 other waste streams. Again, once again, thanks to the task force, as well as the members of the public for your participation. We couldn't do this without you. So a very big mahalo to everybody, both here in the room as well as online. A little bit about myself. I have about 20 years of experience in the waste management field. The last time I was actually in Hawaii was in 2005. So I'm very excited to be back. I look forward to coming back to future task force later on this year as well as next. So if we can go to the next slide, please, Katie. Not advanced.
Let me see if I can get this clicker working.
Oh, there we go. We got it. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
So this is basically an introductory slide that has the extent of the problem as relates to tires.
Forward.
What's this?
Forward button.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can advance the slide.
Thank you, Katie. So as we can see here, there are over 1 million tires that are estimated to be imported into the state annually. That obviously does not include all the existing tires and all the passenger vehicles that are currently within the states. And as we all know, motor vehicle tires, they can pose a potential health risk if they're not disposed of properly. For one thing, they can harbor vectors such as mosquitoes and rodents. And if they get into a landfill, one of the issues is because they're hollow and they're round, methane gas can get trapped inside of it. But what happens is the tires end up bubbling to the surface. In addition, it's very difficult for dozers and other type of heavy landfill equipment to compact them into the landfill. So they keep going up to the top. And again, it makes it difficult for all the equipment and folks to actually utilize it. So in Hawaii, state law prohibits the disposal of whole tires within landfills and other disposal sites unless there's been a waiver or a variance that's been issued. Next one. Okay, so as an example of this problem, what we wanted to do now was to show a video about an illegal dump sites that's now on private property on tires that have been illegally disposed or not properly managed. So this is a 3-minute video about illegally dumped tires and how tires can pose a problem. And we're gonna go ahead and play the video now. And bear with us while we get this started. There we go.
Sunny, are you seeing the Keahi Tucker?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Awesome. Hearing him though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Had this working earlier. Let's hope we can get it.
I'm gonna try to include my computer sound for you folks.
The Wi-Fi.
Okay, I see what my problem is. Bear with me.
This is the only video we're showing, so hopefully it's only the only technical glitch we have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We had it working
It's,
earlier, but these things always happen.
The Wi-Fi.
I'm not allowed to attach or connect to my speakers because we're connected on the OWL.
Katie, you want to try going into your settings on Teams? I know when I've
Yeah,
tried to
I've done
play a
that.
video. Oh, you have. And then there's a device settings for microphone.
Great. Turn off my speaker. Try one more time.
No, Katie. No, Katie. No, Katie.
Maybe we could come back to it.
Yeah, we may have.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah,
don't we
let's
go ahead and
keep moving.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we'll go ahead
guys.
and move along. We'll try and come back to the video because it is worth viewing. But let's go to the next slide. This isn't working. It's frozen, Katie. It's not
Yeah.
moving forward.
Because I'm not sharing it anymore.
Try one more time. There we go. Wonderful. Okay, so more of an overview here. As we can see from the slide, the majority of tires that are imported into the state end up replacing damaged or worn out tires on existing vehicles. And the remainder of the tires are already on new motor vehicles that are imported into the state.
It's kind of complicated.
Is that the video, Cesar?
Mm.
No, okay.
You go.
So within Hawaii, to replace a tire, they'll end up paying a non-refundable disposal fee. And that fee will vary by individual retailers within the state. It's up to them to charge whatever amount it is. End up leaving their used tires with the retailer or the wholesaler they purchased. And county establishments, such as at a convenience center within a landfill. That will accept used tires from residents, sometimes from commercial businesses within the state.
You point at me.
It's interesting. Okay, so previously within Hawaii, there was a $1, what we're calling a motor vehicle surcharge on all tires that were either imported or replaced within the state. This was implemented in 2000. The purpose of it was to get enough funding to remove illegal tire dump sites, to monitor where tires were being disposed of, as well as enforcement efforts. There was a cap of $3 million, which was reached in June of 2003. And the DOH's authority in early January of 2006. As far as we know, as of April of this year, the fund balance was a little bit over $300,000. Now, in January of this year, House Bill 921 was introduced in the state legislature, which would have reestablished the $1 surcharge, which sunsetted. The status is that the bill was deferred in committee that it was not passed into law. And again, the purpose of a lot of these tire surcharges, many other states currently have them, and they provide a funding mechanism to properly manage the end life of collection and disposal of the tires, as well as to remove illegal dump sites.
Advance for you.
There we go. That one works. Okay, so within Hawaii, the Department of Health, they do track some components of the waste tire recycling stream, but mostly tires that are dropped off within permitted recyclers and convenience centers across the state. And in fiscal year 2022, it was reported about 2,500 tons of tires were recycled statewide. And this is within permitted solid waste management facilities. And these tonnages, is important to note, do not include tires that were collected by the private retailers or wholesalers, potentially shipped off island for recycling, as well as tires that are incinerated for power within the H Power Waste Energy Facility.
Can you translate the tons into number of tires, please?
Certainly, it's the exact number in fiscal year 2022 was 2528. Does not include all the tires that were managed, just the ones that were provided in drop-off sites and convenience centers that the state operates. Sorry, I'm going too fast here. I'll go back. Okay, so is to create a formula to determine on average how many tires will need to be managed statewide on an annual basis. So what we did was we ended up looking at how many tires, how long tires last, the average age of a vehicle within Hawaii, as well as how heavy each tire is. So we ended up doing some research, and we calculated that on average, vehicles within Hawaii are about 12 years of age. Tires are replaced on average about every 6 years. And passenger vehicle tires weigh approximately 20 pounds, give or take 5 to 10 pounds, depending on the size of the vehicle. So what we determined was there's about 1,050,000 passenger vehicles currently within Hawaii, estimating that about 17% of tires will need to be replaced on an annual basis. Then we came to the conclusion that the state will need to properly manage about 719,000 tires annually, which equates to about 7,200 tons. Okay, with that background being said, what we're going to go into now is an overview about the state of Hawaii, as well as individual counties within Hawaii, and how they're either managing tires, what the waste stream components entail, and what we need to do in the future to help minimize this product from the waste stream. So Hawaii, there's about 1.4 million people statewide. As Mike had alluded to, the last integrated solid waste management plan was developed in 2000. So it's about 20 some years old, which is why we're updating it now. Back in 2000, they estimated that there was about 7,054 tons per year of tires that were being diverted, which is interesting because our calculation came to 7,200. So it's pretty much the same as it was back in 2000. And again, now let me go back to that slide. Even though tires may be a relatively small component of the overall waste stream, they still pose a significant problem when it comes to properly managing and providing solutions to this particular waste stream. Okay. Regulations that govern tire management and disposal in the state, that includes proper recycling, is Hawaii Revised Statute 3421, Part 2, as well as HAR Chapter 11-58.1. And HRS 3421I, that prohibits the disposal of whole tires at any landfill, incinerator, and all island-wide transfer stations unless there's a variance that's been provided, as well as the illegal dumping of tires on public property and within bodies of water. The law also requires dealers to accept old tires and recycle them or use them in landscaping or as tire-derived aggregate as used in construction projects. As I mentioned before, customers are required to pay a tire disposal fee upon the point of purchase, even if they decide they want to keep their old tires. Okay, so with the state being discussed, what we're going to do now is talk about the individual components for the 4 counties within the state that we looked into. And the first one is the county of Hawaii. Population is about 200,000. Their last ISWMP was in 2019, so relatively recent. And according to the ISWMP, about 1,124 tons of tires were disposed. This is about 0.5% of the total waste composition stream. So it's a relatively small component, which is what we'd expect, because as we know, when we have trash, we can throw it away, it goes to a landfill, and it counts upon the generation disposal data. For tires, it's a little differently because we want to take that out of the landfill and properly manage them. So within the county of Hawaii, we estimate there's approximately 186,000 tons, 186,000 passenger vehicles, which would mean that on an annual basis, the county would have to properly manage about 127,000 tires. Per the county's 2019 ISWMP, scrap tires generated in the county are used as energy feedstock, or were used as energy feedstock, I should say. They were processed at the AES Hawaii coal-fired power plant. However, that facility closed September of last year as part of the state's goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And the tires that were going to AES were called tire-derived fuel, or TDF. And that's where you shred scrap tires. In this case, it'll be mixed with coal or other fuels. And the emissions, they're not much different from conventional fuel sources. And as a note, within the US, approximately 43% of scrap tires are burned as TDF, with cement manufacturing being the largest source.
You want me to advance for you?
Yeah, would you mind? Thank you. This is driving me crazy here. Are you able to do it by the?
Yeah, I just meant to ahead.
Yeah, just go on. Okay, excellent. So for the county of Hawaii, outside of the state ordinance that everybody must follow, they also have their own administrative rules, which prohibits the disposal of whole tires at the sanitary landfill reload facility, as well as any island-wide recycling and transfer stations. And that ordinance prohibits the disposal of whole, cut, sliced, chipped, or shredded tires statewide. And it's similar again to HR S3421. There are 4 permitted facilities to manage tires: Big Island, Goodyear, Leo's Rubbish, and RNG Tire Center. And the county does have specific recycling education programs, and that's used to target businesses and the general public. And this includes radio and newspaper ads with signs on them to inform them how to properly manage and dispose of tires. Okay, next is the city and county of Honolulu. As we all know, it's the oops, I went too far. We need to go back one. There we go. We all know it's the largest by population. The last plan update again was in 2019, based on some of the recent data, about approximately 0.1% of the overall waste stream was comprised of tires, and you're going to start seeing a trend where a lot of this waste characterization data is showing us that tires comprise between 0.1% and about 0.5% of the overall waste stream for reasons I already indicated, because we want to keep it out of the landfill. We want to. In terms of waste diversion data in fiscal year 22, about 34,500 tires were accepted at the city's refuse disposal site. That includes transfer stations and convenience centers. About 631,000 tires are estimated, passenger vehicles are estimated to be on the road, which means that the county, city and county, needs to find a way to properly manage about 430,000 tires. And we are going to talk about H-Power on the next slide and how tires are used as energy. So within the city and county of Honolulu, they have their own city ordinance, as you can see. Tires are actually banned from all citywide disposal facilities. H-Power, which is the waste energy facility, does have a conditional variance from the Department of Health to accept used auto tires. These must be delivered directly from convenience centers, bulky collection crews, or illegal tire dump sites and cleanup events. Now, the variance allows H Power to receive and process about 400 tires per day, which equates to approximately 65,000 annually. However, from what I understand, they're only taking about half that number. They're about 32,500 or so on an annual basis. Interestingly enough, the city and county of Honolulu has a really inventive way to manage this particular waste stream. They allow what's called a disposal clearance waiver, which is a one-day waiver of disposal charges for litter and other cleanup events from non-commercial sources. So in other words, let's just say you're a nonprofit and you want to do a cleanup event, you can apply for a waiver, get those tires however manner they may be, as long as they're passenger tires, they can be brought to H Power, and the disposal fee is waived to process those tires. So it's a win-win for the environment, and it's a win-win for H Power. Okay, so County of Kauai is next. This is the smallest by population. The blast plan update was in 2021, so relatively recently. And some of the data we were able to ascertain was in fiscal year 2016, about 9 tons of tires were disposed. Again, we're showing less than 0.1% of the total waste composition. So again, we're falling in that 0.1 to 0.5 range that all the counties are reporting. And interestingly enough, fiscal year 22, the county did track and they found that about 17,000 tires were collected via recycling contracts that they have with Unitech. There are 4 RTSs as well as the Kikaha, I think I pronounced that right, landfill, that the county can collect and auto ship. And residents can bring up to 8 light passenger vehicle tires per year to the RTS. Okay, so some of the county ordinances, they have their own county code. As you can see here, section 21-3.2, 3.3, and 7.3. And refuse transfer stations and county landfills, they may not accept used whole cut, sliced, chipped, or shredded motor vehicle and heavy equipment tires, except for whole motor, automobile, and passenger truck tires can be accepted from residents using self-haul. They do allocate about $155,000 per year to manage tires within the county. Now, they anticipate there are going to be higher costs in the future, just because, as we all know, shipping costs and processing costs are increasing. And funding from this program comes directly from the county's general fund. And within the county, there are 3 facilities that are permitted to collect and process tires. There are, well, I should say, let me take this back. There's 4 refuse transfer stations, the Kikaha landfill and Unitech, as we already mentioned. So the last county that we're going to look at is Maui. This has a population of 165,000. They are currently working on their latest ISWMP. I believe the last one that they developed was in 2009. So it's going to be interesting to see what the new data says. And they do have some waste characterization data on here. It is from 1994, so you want to take it with a grain of salt. But once again, it's showing that range of 0.1 to 0.5% of the total MSW is comprised of tires. Between fiscal year 2009 and 2014, approximately 8,000 tons of tires were diverted. And they are estimated to need to manage about 111,000 tires on an annual basis. Sorry, I went too far. Go back, I can't go back. Okay, so there are no individual county ordinances that were identified in Maui. They do follow all the state ordinances. In terms of county programs and funding, they do ban disposal of tires in landfill facilities, but they can be taken to any of the permitted facilities on the island for a charge. There are 5 specific permitted collectors and recycling processors, as we can see on the screen. And interestingly enough, within Maui, they identified some of the planning issues that they wanted to have in this plan. And the first one was, while recycling practices for tires within the island are indeed generally adequate, there are areas of concern And this mostly relates to tires that have been illegally dumped on public and private property, as well as the small quantities of tires that may be stored by individual residents and businesses. And what happens is if you're storing them, they're not properly stored. Once again, they can collect vectors. They can collect rainwater, and the mosquitoes breed, or rats can be attracted to them. So we really want to help the county find a way to properly, identify where these stockpiles are and then send them to permitted recycling facilities. And lastly, state funding for the implementation of residential tire disposal programs should be considered, whether or not this means re-implementation of the $1 fee or some other kind of funding mechanism. It is important to have that, and we will get into that in later slides. We will be discussing how other states do have fees and what those fees are used for and how they can be used to properly manage this particular waste stream. That's it for my slides.
I think that
It
is.
Yes.
So I think this is where we're gonna ask for some interaction from our guests and the task force. I'd like to know, what gaps in our existing plans that you have observed based on your experience or from the information that Christian just delivered. And I guess I'll first offer the floor to our guests in the room. If you guys have anything that you wanted to suggest.
Question I had would be, if the non-refundable disposal fee is no longer being collected and the bills haven't been passed into law, how soon will the remaining balance run out? There's only $300,000 remaining, so that felt like a concern.
Okay. So noted that concern from Ahmad that the remaining balance will only have so many years left. And that would be a question for us to follow up on, to do the math and calculate until.
Well,
It's not being spent.
Right.
Oh, it's not being spent.
Yeah,
Right.
so I believe the last time that the funding in that the tire funds had been used was JV to the Department of Vector Control Branch. I think it was during a dengue outbreak to address the tire failing. We have offered, particularly to Gage, access to the funds in instances where there are, like large stockpiles that have been found. I think the last time we discussed this stage, it was like a container in Papalay or off of like Barrington Highway and Papalay, they found with a bunch of tires in it. So we had talked to Gage about, having access to the funds to use their and it was decided that since, as Christian had mentioned, the position of that $1 fee was sunset back in 2006. And so there's no new money coming in. We're fine with getting the money out the door. We could use it to step up a single project or a single grant allocation to the county. But it's just coming up with a great solution for the fund, understanding that it can be a one-time.
Thanks. And then Kimo was adding some comments in the chat and suggesting that it'd be helpful to calculate the percent of tires properly addressed for each county. And then the differences in the percentages could reveal what works and what barriers exist. So another strategy to identify those gaps and where things are more or less successful, depending on their percentage of properly addressed tires.
Do you
So
have that
just-
data calculated now that you can give to us?
That was one of the difficulties of getting all the data. We can look into that in greater detail, but I think that was one of our, recommendations was to track that a little bit more closely. But I don't know if I can provide that now.
Okay.
However, there was a question that came in. I just got a text message asking how we actually arrived on the estimated tons of tires that we anticipate need to be managed on an annual basis. Based on our calculations, there's about 718,000 or so tires within the state that need to be managed. What we did was we multiplied that by the 20 pounds per tire on average and divided it by the 2,000 tons. And that came to 7,200. That's how we came to that number, which is that was asked.
Okay.
I think we also need to add that, the assumption also, consider the replacement of 4 tires when
Good
thinking
point.
of the vehicles.
Right.
It was the replacement of 4 tires.
Right.
And that's how we ended up with that bigger number.
Yes, yeah. You know, some people might have a nail in their tire and they only have to replace one. But most people who go in, they will replace all 4 tires at once. If you don't do that, what happens is you have uneven wearing on your vehicle. So a lot of people, you know, they will go and replace all 4 tires at the same time. And that's how we based our calculations.
Okay, thank you. I see Allison has a hand up.
It's a handout.
Aloha. Hi. So
Hi, Allison, go ahead.
I just wanted to let the group know that our data and maybe the other counties' data is a little wonky. What we reported to you folks is what we at the county have collected from residents ourselves and know that got recycled. We're not reporting all of the tires that come through the retailers that they take back, you know, through the state legislation. So, you know, that's just something I wanted to make note of. And another thing that we, you know, in those reports that we were talking about is that's not noted is whether there's a problem with illegal dumping. So I just wanted to let the group know that we don't have a problem with illegal dumping on Kauai that we know of. We participated in a task force several years ago that specifically looked at illegal tire dumping and how we can resolve these issues. And I believe that the reason that we don't is because we do provide opportunities for the public to bring in tires that aren't managed through the retailers when they purchase new tires. So that investment that we're making, $150,000 a year, is a good investment because we don't have to do any cleanup because we don't have illegal dumping. We do think there's mismanagement, or, you know, that people are coming into our sites that maybe are commercial and we're having little issues that we hope we can resolve, and we're always watching that. But in general, it's a good investment for us to take back these tires for free from the public.
And Alice, you hit the nail on the head there, that a lot of these retailers may not be reporting all the tires that they're either collecting or shipping out of the state. So all the numbers that we're providing, or much of the numbers, may be conservative because we are not able to capture everything. Sort of like we're trying to fill in the puzzle with all the pieces and we're getting there, but there are some tires that are inevitably going to slip through our ability to calculate and determine how many there are and where they're going.
Sure. Okay. Well, thanks, Allison, for that clarification. And then I want to go back to Kimo because I may have moved on too quickly. You may have had a follow-up question. Apologies for that. Kimo, you're up next.
Yeah, I don't. So you started your presentation by saying a million tires are brought in every year. So that's the figure, not 778,000. It's a million because you bring in a tire to replace a tire. I don't know, and it seems it's really frustrating that you change your unit. Sometimes you talk about tires, sometimes you talk about tons. Let's just try to be consistent. And I don't understand why you don't have the data regarding how many tires the retailers are collecting, because they are, I would say 98% of the time, every time they're charging somebody money, an ADF or whatever it's called, they're collecting a tire because they're replacing a tire. You should have, and that money goes to the Department of Health. So you guys should have very accurate data in terms of. I don't understand why we're not being given better data.
Okay. Kimo, thank you. You're cutting out just a little bit, but we heard you. When I just want to add, I think I want to give the floor to Mike. Would you like to respond to the
just so you know, I think that there's a common misconception throughout the state, but the fee that is currently charged to a customer at the retail level when they're purchasing a tire, that's the fee that the retailer is charging you to dispose of your tire. But that money does not come back to DOH, or it's not a state fee. And there's currently no legislation compelling the retailers to report to us the transaction and how many tires. I know that Senator Favela introduced a bill this past year that did, that was to implement a reporting function at the retailer level. But right now, there's nothing statutorily that requires the retailers to report to us. And that's why there's this data gap.
Okay, interesting. Thanks, Kimo, for pointing it out, and your response, Mike, for helping us understand. And I think we can encourage our team to use consistent units for better understanding going forward too. So I'm going to move on to Nicole, if that's all right, and then just being the assigned timekeeper after Nicole, then we'll move on to I believe Joaquin is going to share from an experience from his line of work. So Nicole, please.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I have two questions. Question one, are rental fleets considered in these calculations, or are we just looking at sort of residential tire purchases? Because I noticed the population metric used is our residential population. We also have 10 million visitors a year, putting demand on vehicles through the rental industry. So I'm wondering how and if that is considered in this. And then are we looking only at kind of lightweight vehicle tires? Or are we looking at tires on our, city and county waste hauling trucks, on our large kind of industrial vehicles?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Nicole. I'll answer the second one first. We looked at passenger vehicle tires only at this point. There are like tractor trailers and larger commercial vehicle tires that we did not put into that calculation. On that, we do have those numbers that we can incorporate into the actual plan itself, but we only looked at the passenger vehicle tires for the purpose of this right here, because they are the vast majority of the tires that we were going to be managed on the island, as well as a lot of these transfer stations or convenience centers within the landfill or transfer station will only accept passenger vehicle tires. Commercial tires can be managed in another aspect. I'm sorry, your first question, Nicole, can you repeat that, please?
Rental vehicles?
Oh, yeah. The data that we have is for passenger vehicle tires only. As far as I know, it does not include rental vehicles, but we can look into that to see if that would push us over that 1 million threshold.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Okay, at this point, I think I don't see a new hand up, so I'm going to hand it over to Joaquin. Joaquin, are you ready as our industry rep to share your experience on pathways for end-of-life tires?
Awesome. Pardon me. This is my siesta time. I keep looking for a hammock, and I gotta wake up now. I'm going to share my screen real quick here. If you let me, that would appreciate that. I'm closed out right now from that option.
Give it a try now.
Not yet. Still shaded.
Joaquin, now you should be able to share. Yes.
I am now. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Excellent.
Okay, I'm going to share this one. I'm learning how to be better at this myself, and then I started on the other screen, and hopefully it'll pop up for you. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for having me. I have spent, just to give you a little history, I have spent 20 years associated with the Cal Recycle waste tire program. I spend most of my time really looking at tire drive aggregate civil engineering applications of reusing waste tires. But obviously, I am entrenched in all the waste tire issues from California. And so I look forward to questions, any type of questions when we get through this. And I'm going to try to do my best to give you a global perspective and then narrow it down real quickly to the experiences that we have in California, and hopefully that'll help with this discussion for everyone. So to begin with, why manage tires? Well, like we've heard, when you have the term that we use, the international term now is end of life tires, ELTs. And so when you stockpile ELTs, whether in all the different ways, you can promote vectors, mosquitoes, rats, the things we heard about that harbor potential pathogens and, are not good for human health. And if you have a stockpile that ignites, which we have had in California, which has driven a lot of the rules and a lot of the direction of Cal Recycle in California. If you have a stockpile that ignites, it releases toxic compounds in the air. It's a huge cleanup and extremely expensive. And not only do you have the smoke and spreading all of that, but you have whatever groundwater issues you may contend with, and you have all of this cleanup that you have to do to get the pyrolytic oil and all of the things that come from the combustion of tires taken care of. So what occurs in the absence of an ELT management plan is there's a couple things. You have a missed opportunity for the circular economy, because now you're not injecting this waste stream to get reused. Tires and their materials can provide an inexpensive and valuable resource for a variety of civil infrastructure projects and other applications. There are a lot of folks that make rubber products, and they'll use recycled tire rubber to do that. And in the absence of a management plan, that can lead to fire risk and the breeding ground, stockpiles and the breeding ground of vectors for disease. So the benefits of managing ELTs are numerous: economic benefits, social benefits, environmental benefits, such as for economic benefits, increased industrial activity, you're creating jobs, etc. Social benefits, you're creating jobs, you're avoiding the potential health and environmental risks for your communities, and you're doing better coordination of stakeholders in the value chain. So this kind of flows with the circular economy and creating work. And then environmental benefits, you're contributing to the circular economy, and it's an efficient use of natural resources because you're replacing a natural resource when you use a waste tire product. And in a lot of ways, that can reduce your greenhouse gas, like per project, you can reduce your greenhouse gas emissions, and you're reducing the risk for toxic fire, and you're reducing the vector risk. Now, there are three types of ELT management approaches, and this information is from the World Business Council on Sustainable Development Tire Industry Project, which I was thankfully involved with as they went through this process. But so in the end, I'll also share a link if you want to get more information from this group. So this is really a summary. This is a global perspective, but it works for, the globe, and really summarizes the ways in which waste tires are pathways are used in the world. You have either a free market system, a tax system, or an EPR, extended producer responsibility system. And they all have key features. So the free market system key features really are: there's minimum state intervention, less producer involvement, and market forces are really the main driver for where the ELT pathways go and where the end-of-life tires end up. The tax system, which is really let's say state government run, the benefit or the key features of that system is that because it's mandated how the ELTs are managed, it can favor more environmentally friendly recovery routes because it is not driven by economics, it's driven by policy. And then the third type, the extended producer responsibility system, The kind of key features this has is that it's cost optimization, of course, better data traceability through reporting obligations, because they're obligated to report and give back all the numbers on the tires. The most cost-effective solutions can come from this approach, as well as a lot of times the most sustainable, because it's a one company sense, one entity managing the whole thing. So this is just a map to kind of show you the ELT processing pathways. You'll see another one shortly. They're all similar, but here we can start at the top with our waste tires. The thing I like to point out here is that if you go down the middle, that's really the quickest pathway. You have shredding, then you have shredding tires, and then you'll see there's a line that goes down to civil engineering. So the simplest way to reuse a waste tire is to shred it, and then you can use that in civil engineering. Those shreds can become a backfill type of material that can replace other materials. But on that pathway, the material can be diverted. And in here in this scheme, we can see you can divert to the left to granulate the material. So before it goes to civil engineering, those shreds can go be shredded again and again. It can go through devulcanization. It can turn it into a powder. And that's usually going to be things that are going into other as feedstock for other manufacturing processes, making playgrounds, playground buffering, and a variety of things, stops for vehicles on the parking lot or whatever. And then on the right hand, you can see these are all, you can take the steel out, and that can be another avenue of recovery. And then usually the other things will be energy recovery, tire derived fuel, or pyrolysis, or as you can see here, one of the biggest ways that waste tires are used for fuel is in cement kilns. So here I have an example from Aliapur. This is EPR. This is how an extended producer responsibility scheme would work. This is what's happening in France. The tire manufacturers were obviously regulated to get together and manage all the tires. They created a company called Aliapur. And how it works is at the purchase of the new tires, that's where the money is exchanged. That really is, the money driving this. And then they come and they collect them. They collect all the tires, and then they sort them. And they sort them into different categories, and then they process them and ship them to other companies, which are sub companies that focus on the specific type of outlet. So on the far left, we have chips and tires, which is public works. That's civil engineering applications, basically. Then you have fuel is the power GOM, and then you have granulated rubber, which is going to be feedstock for other materials, and whatever creative industry and businesses can use that material. That's where it'll be, infill, different types of things, mats, rubber sidewalks, these kind of things. And then you'll see on the right, there's a line item that basically comes up from the previous slide where they're collecting the material, where if they can be reused, then they get reused again. A lot of times that might be in another country, but that's one pathway before the shredding or the processing, and then also retreading. Now that's a big way to get another life cycle out of your tire, and it's usually associated with commercial trucking institutions where they really count the dollars, and retreading gives them a lot more bang for their buck, miles for their dollar. So I just wanted to share that so you can see how does that pan out when we talk about EPR. Well, that's the French. That's what the French are doing, and there's a lot of discussion in that. But just to move on, then this is just a snapshot of all of the ELT end use in the United States, and this pie is very similar if you were to look at a world pie. Not exactly the same, but the magnitudes and the relationships of the main categories are similar. And so what we see in the United States is 32% goes to ground rubber, meaning it gets processed into some ground rubber, which goes to a variety of things. One of them is rubberized hot mix asphalt, where they put it in the road surface to get a longer lasting road surface. Then you have tire derived fuel. That's going to be all the ways in which it's used as fuel at 32%. Land disposal, that's landfills. And just a quick note that in most of the states and in California, you cannot dispose of a whole tire, but you can shred it and dispose of it. And so there are still tires, end-of-life tires, going into landfills, even when they can't throw them in as whole tires. They're allowed to shred them and throw them into the landfill. And then civil engineering was 6%, and then other miscellaneous. But the big thing, the big takeaway here is that this is generally what you're seeing about end-of-life tire reuse, is this general snapshot of ground rubber, tire derived fuel, land disposal, and civil engineering applications. Now, this is California's pie. California allows for landfill disposal, of course, has to be shredded. And California is a free market type of a system. So it is not an extended producer responsibility system. And so this is what we get. And you'll see here the two TDFs, TDF export and TDF in-state. So about 15% of all of the end-of-life tires are going for fuel. And that's mostly going to be in-state is going to be cement kilns. And out when it's shipped out, it can be a variety of things. A lot of the export goes to Japan, and they use it in power plants. And you'll see some other things in here. But the big picture is we have a lot. Like in all of these pictures, I hope you see that there is no magic bullet, and we have a long ways to go to actually find a recipe or a system that's going to limit the landfill disposal and get all the material into recycled and sustainable uses. This is California's flow map. So we start with waste tire generators. Again, it's going to be similar to the other one. If you go straight from the top to the bottom, you basically end up at civil engineering applications. That's the quickest route, the least expensive way to add value to the material is to just shred it a couple times. We call it a two-pass material. And then you have civil engineering material. And if you can reuse that, you're using a lot of tires. And then on that pathway, if that shredding pathway, it can be diverted and if we look in here, we can go to the left to tire derived products. And so it can be ground up into more smaller pieces, and different things happen. You can make playground surfaces, flooring, roofing, pavements. And if you go the other direction on the flow chart, you'll get to tire derived fuel, where the chips, the shreds, are a specific gradation of specific size, and then they go to cement kilns as tiny little pieces. There are whole tire mechanisms for cement kilns, but they're kind of in the old school. The new school is feeding in very small chips into them. And then the other thing I would comment on here is that when you look at the imports to California on the left and exports, yes, there's some exporting and there is some importing. It is not a major player in the pathways for ELTs in California. But on the imports, I will note that we get a lot of tires from Hawaii. And a lot is a relative term. Okay. Now, so when we talk about civil engineering applications in the simplest form of added value to a waste tire, to shred it and use it in construction, in California, it's used for road embankments, roadslide repair, behind retaining walls. These are fill applications. It's used as a fill material. And then vibration mitigation underneath rail lines to mitigate the vibration, especially going through cities and high density areas to mitigate the vibration from moving to the adjacent properties. Landfill applications, replacing gravel for landfill gas extraction and other parts of the landfill system, and basically replacing a natural resource, and then stormwater infiltration galleries, where you're basically replacing gravel. It has social benefits. So the social benefits are it's a sustainable material. There is no foreseeable future that we know of yet where we're not going to have tires on cars. And a slight note here is that in general, the market sees an increase of tires. Electric vehicles create larger tires. All the new cars have larger tires, and electric vehicles wear tires faster. And so what we're seeing is we're going to see more, unfortunately, or however you want to look at that, we're going to see more of this stream, not less, as we look out in the future. It is a recycled material, so that's a social benefit when you're using it. It's a waste diversion because it's not going into the landfill when you utilize it, or other outlets. It does not require borrow source mining, so you're replacing a natural product, and it can give you lower project greenhouse gas emissions because you're using a recycled product. You don't have to mine that material, and it helps achieve sustainable infrastructure ratings if that's something you're doing, and it's economical for many projects. And in the state of California, all the projects that the state of California has promoted and promotes in their grant programs and their things are economical. That's one of the main things. It needs to bring benefit, and it needs to be a cost benefit too. I'm just going to show you real quick some of the projects. This is an embankment fill type of project where you see the material is encapsulated in soil and is used to create an elevated on-ramp. This is an on-ramp to a highway in the San Francisco Bay Area region. And then also for lightweight repairs, this is for road repairs when the road slides out and falls down the hill, so to speak. You can use this material to get a long-term fix. This is an example of one in Sonoma County, one of our wine counties in California. It was failed, and then you can't tell when the project is done, but inside the core of it is a lightweight material of tire-derived aggregate, which of course is end-of-life tires recycled. Here is behind retaining walls. You get a less expensive retaining wall if you use a lightweight material behind it. Let me get through these quick. These are all the areas in California where it's used for vibration mitigation underneath rail lines. It's extremely cost effective compared to the other traditional civil engineering applications that would be used. They save millions upon millions by using this technology. And then landfill gas collection, replacing gravel on a landfill and using a TDA. It has attributes that make it better than gravel in these applications. It's got a larger void ratio. And then this is stormwater applications where you're capturing the first flush of road stormwater first flush and putting it into a gallery that's filled with TDA so that it can then clean the water and then infiltrate towards the groundwater setting. And this is an example of what that looks like when it's done in a Northern California project site where all the grass patches are. That's actually a gallery, and the water comes down, and before it goes into the existing runoff, the first flush, as we call it, will go right into the upgradient infiltration gallery and therefore capture contaminants before it goes into the local stream. Okay, I try to get a lot of information in a short period. Some of that information I presented was from the Tire Industry Project. I have the link here. You can also look it up. There's a lot of information. This is recent information where they looked at the whole world, and they looked at different segments of the world in the United States and Europe and China to understand the problem as a whole. And then there's a link here to Tire Management CalRecycle homepage, which is the California, a link to how California deals with end-of-life tires. With that, I thank you, and I am open to any questions.
Katie, can I ask one question?
Yeah, I just want to do a time check. We're running a little behind time, and there were a couple of questions in the chat, but go ahead, Christian.
Joaquin, hope this is quick. When you mentioned the first flush, are you referring to the first rainfall that comes usually in the winter time, or?
Yes. So yeah, assuming there's a season, like, in the first rains come, the oil and the particles and all the things that have accumulated on the road, the first rains of the season are usually laden with the most pollution, and that's what this method does, is captures the first flush. Tries to capture the first flush of the road and not spread it out into the adjacent environment, but actually capture it and then infiltrate the water and hold any pollutants in the gallery.
Thank you. And then I want to acknowledge that there were a couple of questions in the chat. Nicole had listed a few for follow-ups, and so I've taken those down. And Kimo had asked again about the data that's being collected. I wanted to just stay on the water quality thread just for one more moment. Kimo had asked about the tires themselves, and I thought this would be a good question for Joaquin. The tires themselves, when they're used as a stormwater a low impact development material, do they pose any threat to the environment from their constituent components leaching into the water table? And what does California think about that?
Okay, well, that's yes. There's a lot of
Maybe that's another meeting.
stuff in there, but let me just be as brief as I can. So, when you shred the tire, there's still steel belts that are exposed. And the steel belts are going to rust. And we know the steel belts have precipitous metals, so you get iron, manganese, and a little bit of zinc. We also know through studies, water quality studies at Humboldt State University, Cal Poly Humboldt State, which is a water engineering school, we know that those are captured in the 1/4 inch or whatever the top soil layer at the bottom of of an infiltration gallery. So if you pour water through it, you're going to get precipitous metals, and they're going to then sit at the bottom, but they do not migrate. And then recently we had the University of Washington come to a study, presented a study talking about this chemical called 6-PPDQ, which is associated with tires. And we are studying in California with HSU, we're doing a study to understand how that chemical, if it's captured in that soil level like the precipitous metals are. And an educated guess would say that yes, it is. There's been information in studies in the past that talk about mitigation of this chemical, but we didn't study it in the past because we weren't aware of it. Now it's something that's become aware in the public knowledge, and we're studying it, but we haven't completed that, so I don't really have a result to say from that.
Sure.
But those are the things of concern. Yeah.
Cool. And just to follow up, if someone went to the Tire Industry Project World Business Council website, do you guys aggregate some of these studies so that if somebody wanted to know more, like the Cal Poly and UW studies that are done, you guys track
The
that?
Tire Industry Project, not so much, but the Tire Management CalRecycle homepage, and there's actually another university page where we also put these studies, so you can get it out of CalRecycle, Tire Management, although it's a little convoluted. You can also go to Chico State University, and they have a Tire Management website where we also try to populate all of the research in their on their platform. Which unfortunately I didn't put their website up, but it's called TERC, T-E-R-C. If you put in a web browser TERC / space TDA, it will be the first thing that pops up.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And again, you can contact me with any questions on the side as well.
Okay, great. Appreciate it.
We have a couple raised hands.
We do have a couple of raised hands. Chemo. Okay. I see Chemo in the #1 position. Chemo, did you have a follow-up question?
No.
Nope. Okay. And then Nicole, did you have a follow-up question, or can we lower your hand? Oh, hands are lowered.
I'll be brief.
Okay, go.
So given that we're sending many of our tires to California and perhaps also maybe Nevada, and the California at least is doing quite a bit of landfilling with them, how are we here in Hawaii considering that as recycling the waste tires? And is there perhaps some different narration that needs to happen there, or do we know that we're putting our tires into a pathway where they're being shredded and used for industrial purposes?
Is that a question for me?
Anyone
I will
who can
gladly
answer it.
answer it, but
Yeah,
my
please do if you
perspective
can.
is I don't understand the Hawaii dynamic in its intricacies, but I would say, like a lot of things, the solution first is to manage the tires so that you can actually know where they all are. and you can know where they're going. And then the second thing would be to take that stream and then look for the type of alternatives that everybody's comfortable with and then split it up. There is no magic bullet yet. Nobody has found that. And so the way to manage it is to find the different avenues where a certain amount can go into this positive way, or civil engineering applications as an example, and then, you know, maybe cement kilns as a fuel, and mix them all is would be the direction that I would suggest.
It just,
to
it feels
find
a
the
little
solution.
problematic if we're using consumers' money to ship to California to landfill there. That would, I guess, is my point.
And all of the processors and the way it works in California is they're all trying to find avenues that we would consider calling recycled. They're trying to find a way to make it into a different material that then gets purchased. That's the free market system. That's their incentive. But they're also regulated, and so there's only so much material that they're going to be allowed to stockpile. And they get to that point where their regulation is, and then their outlet that is okay so far in the state of California is that then that material can go to a landfill. And so that's the outlet. And I would also say that there is a strange way in the world sense that, you know, what ends up happening even in France is when they end up with stuff they can't figure out what to do with, it goes to North Africa and conveniently disappears. Now, you know, so it is a problem that the world faces, and we don't have an exact solution. All we have is, you know, developing solutions.
And I would add, it's
Thank
probably
you.
not just with tires, with everything that we feel is recycled, until we have very good, measures or methods for reporting and tracking. It's very difficult to say, as Joaquin said, trying to get a handle on how things are managed up front, is probably first, the first order of business. And then, following that all the way through to how things are ultimately disposed or managed.
Thank you, Christine, for the addition. And Joaquin, thanks for your perspective and experience sharing from California and the industry at large. I really appreciate it. I think we are running a little bit behind on time, and I'd like to offer people a 5-minute chance for a break in case you need it. I've got 10:30 exactly on my watch. Could we reconvene at 10:35? And then we'll pick up with the next. I think we should hold off on the video, just because we're running so far behind. Unless you feel that should take priority over your presentation.
I think the video is important because it says context to local.
Okay.
And I will provide solutions, so I think the video would be good.
Okay. So, Sunny, since I was unable to share the video from my screen, could you try to share? We had good success with Joaquin sharing.
And then we can show that as we come
And you
back.
could play Joaquin Tucker.
Yes, give me 1 second.
Kelly Tucker. I'm looking at Joaquin's name. You want to cue that up and we can watch it when we come back?
Yep, I have it queued up.
All right, you cue it up and then put it on pause. We'll give everybody a 5-minute break to use the restroom, and then we'll reconvene, watch the video, and then we'll go into Cesar's presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, mahalo all. 5 minutes.
I think we go back. Do you want to, or you want to?
I gotta mute the owl.
you all really like, oh, yeah. Yeah. Coming up against. They're supposed to be fixing this. Sometimes. soon.
Oh,
Most of them.
there's so many, I counted like 10 of them.
No, no, well, you're off, I think it's like 13 or something. You're speaking.
38,
13,
oh, 13.
Yeah.
I thought you said 38.
but you know, as always, lowest bidder. And so they did them, they're not to spec. I think they're a little too high for the width.
These seem pretty gnarly.
Yeah, and so the first three by the guard shaft down at the bottom are relatively small. They've been here for a long time. And so they kind of trick you if you had never been up here, because they're relatively small, you think, oh, the speed bump's not too bad. And then the fourth one is a newer one. And that one is, yeah, that all of a sudden you're like, holy cow.
There was one where I was like, whoa.
Everybody goes through that. We try to warn everyone who visits that, you know, just speed bumps are no joke.
Yeah. It's nice and cool up here, but hard to find food. Have to go all the way down the road
Yeah,
to find food.
yeah,
And then the cell phone reception.
yeah, the reception stinks up here. But yeah, I mean, we have our own little microclimate, you know, it's, well, a lot of times it's drizzling or cool up here. And then you look down and, you know, once you get past the high school, all of a sudden it's the desert. But yeah, I mean, the nearest food options are down at, you know, like Dog Quixote or Foodland. You know, there's a lot of stuff. It's just, you have to be thinking that you got, you know, 15 minutes or so. You gotta factor into the driving now.
You just have to hit 13 speed bumps on the way down. And 13 back
Exactly. Yeah, so then it's like, oh, a whole lunch, man.
Just hits Mike's soft spot.
Yeah.
It's a trigger for Mike.
Oh.
Trigger for Mike.
Since they went in, I've been complaining about them.
Oh, you noticed them, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Sunny, can you hear me? Oh, Sunny says, give me a sec. Fixing speaker. All right, Sunny, when you feel ready, I think you can play that video. This video is going to be the what I'm doing today. So looks like on my end, it looks like it started and froze. Don't forget when you share your video to turn on the switch to share audio too.
Did we lose her?
Sunny, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but the screen is frozen on my side.
Thank you, Christine.
Sunny's showing as her mic muted right now.
Sunny, it says your mic is muted right now, but I think there's something else happening that's keeping you from being able to share. You can message me on Teams if you want. I've got it open on my phone.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna move on.
Yep.
To Cesar's presentation. So I will I'm gonna share my screen again. Go back to the PowerPoint.
Next slide.
See if I can advance it this way.
There it is.
Okay.
All right.
Cesar.
All right. Good morning, all. I'll introduce myself again. Cesar Leon with Tetra Tech, Solid Waste Planning Manager. And I will be presenting on research we did on out of state and how other states manage tires to identify some potential solutions. The primary review of other states, next please. It starts with, we did 3 states. California was the first one. So in California, tire management goes back all the way to 1989, or the California Tire Recycling Bill. It established the tire recycling program and the California Tire Recycling Management Fund, creating a fee imposed on customers at the time of the sale of new tires. So that was the initiation of tire management. Second one is SB 744 in 1993. It initiated the Waste Tire Hauler Registration and Manifest Program, granting CalRecycle the authority to implement new California waste and used tire manifest system. And we've been hearing this various data gaps that are being identified here. And also we heard that the first thing to do is get a handle on the number of tires and keeping track as those tires move. So the intent of SB 744 was such. So the next one is SB 876. This one is a 2000 statute. Was enacted to establish priorities and objectives of a 5-year plan to properly manage and recycle waste tires. The 5-year plan is intended to recommend and establish goals on the proper management of used tires, including programmatic and fiscal matters, as well as performance objectives and metrics. Next slide, please. Okay, so some of the programs that California has implemented include the California Uniform Waste and Used Tire Manifest program, which is tracks the storage. It also provides for inspection and enforcement of generators, haulers, and processing facilities. It also provides outreach and education in the form of a tire conference. The tire recycling cleanup and enforcement grants that have been offered by CalRecycle are several, including local government waste tire cleanup grants, local government waste tire amnesty grants, rubberized pavement grant program, TDA grants or tire derived aggregate, tire derived products grant program, tire incentive programs, local government waste tire enforcement grants, all helping to find solutions for waste tires. The California Department of Tax and Fee Administration oversees the California Tire Fee Program in cooperation with CalRecycle, as well as the California Air Resources Board, or CARB. Next, we go to Colorado. The Colorado Waste Motor Vehicle Tire Hauler Act, or HB 05-1126, was passed in 2005 to ensure the proper transportation and storage of waste tires to recycling and storage facilities in an effort to minimize illegal dumping. Also passed in 2005, Colorado SB 141 prohibited the disposal of passenger tires in residential trash. Instead, residents are required to return used tires to auto tire suppliers who collect them for a waste tire fee of $125. In 2009, SB 09-289 improved the collection of tire fee by making tire retailers collect a fee at the point of sale rather than at the point of disposal. HB 10-1018 in 2011 created a manifest requirements for waste tire haulers and waste tire facilities to track tire life cycle. Again, data gaps and tire manifest just keeping track of tires. HB 1352 was passed in 2013 to phase out Colorado's tire monofills. It also reduced the waste tire fee from $1.55 to 55 cents, which would fund the Waste Tire Administration and Enforcement Cleanup Fund, as well as compensation for end users and market development. Another statute of this bill was to set limits on waste tire haulers, where they can store no more than 1,000 tires at a time, while waste tire generators are capped at 1,500. The most recent law to go into effect was SB 19-198 in 2019, which raised the waste tire fee from 55 cents up to $2 on each tire sold in Colorado beginning in the year 2020. Next. The next state is, the programs in Colorado. These include collection facilities must be registered with the Colorado Department of Public Health as a waste tire collection facility, which must be renewed every 3 years. Again, data collection, data tracking. That's what we see a pattern here. The collection facilities are required to use a waste tire hauler that is registered with the Colorado Department of Public Health, as well as may not accept and or offer shipments of waste tires without the form WT2. So there is a form to fill out and keep the manifest going. In addition, facilities must only deliver their waste tires to registered waste tire monofills or registered waste processing end users. They are, as I stated before, Colorado is trying to end the monofills, but that doesn't mean that they're all gone. State of Washington, HB 1671, or the Waste Not Washington Act, established a dollar fee on the retail sales of new tires. In 2005, substitute HB 2085 reinstated the tire fee program through the creation of waste tire removal account in the state treasury. A dollar fee was imposed on all retail sales of new tires. Oops, sorry. HB 2085 was promulgated into WAC 458, encompasses the tire fee, a studded fee, and a fee on core deposits or credits under the Title 70, Chapter 205. The programs in Washington, the primary goal of the programs funded through the tire fees is to clean up waste tire piles and prevent new ones from accumulating. The Department of Environment receives an annual budget of $500,000 from the waste tire removal account to provide funding for to contract waste tire removal services, as well as to assist local governments in waste tire prevention, illegal dumping or stacking, and also education. In addition, the waste tire removal program manages the fees collected from the sale of new tires, as well as licensed businesses to handle the storage of disposal of waste tires. So next, I will provide a just an overview, just in follow up to some of the information that was provided by Joaquin and also maybe Christian. So in the state landfill regulations, just an overview. So we have 38 states that ban whole tires from disposal. 35 states allow shredded tires to be placed in landfills. 11 states banned all tires from landfills. 17 states allow processed tires to be placed into monofills. 8 states have no restrictions on placing scrap tires in landfills. Next slide. Here's a list of states with tire fees. And instead of giving you the number of those that have a fee, I'll say that 7 states don't have a tire disposal fee or mechanism for retailers to recover disposal or recycling fees. Therefore, the majority of the states do have a disposal fee. Hawaii used to have one, but it sunsetted a few years, several, I guess a dozen years ago or more. And so that is why we removed it from here. So what happens in to used tires in the US? Joaquin provided an update. His was on 2021. We see on this update, on the 2022 data, that tire-derived fuel was about 37% of what the end life of tires was used for. Of that 30%, where does this tire-derived fuel go? And we have this as 50% going to cement kilns, 29% going to pulp and paper manufacturing, and the remainder going to electric utility boilers. So again, TDF, big component of the solution for tires. Tire-derived fuel and waste to energy. We wanted to just have a brief on this one. Tire-derived fuel, what is it? Tire-derived fuel is just shredded tires, no more than that. And so that's what tire-derived fuel is, just in case some had that question. In Hawaii, AES used TDF as a fuel source in a small percentage. They were not accepting TDF during the entire life of the operation. AES could only accept up to 2% coal alternative, and TDF was not always available. Sometimes was cheaper to bale it and ship it. So H Power receives tires from Honolulu County as allowed by their existing ordinance. So
Ready to move into potential solutions?
I thought there was another slide in between, but I'll continue. So in looking into so we just finished reviewing the states, and based on that review, some potential solutions came out. But we wanted to discuss sustainable materials management first. And this not only applies to tires, but it applies to the various streams that we will be looking at through this update. So we here have the EPA's hierarchy, basically EPA's hierarchy since the 1970s. And so there are many strategies to reduce waste. The EPA has categorized and prioritized these strategies by most effective to least effective. Starting from the most effective, reducing waste means taking less and therefore disposing less. There are many ways to reduce, but we can start by learning how not need something because we can be prepared by asking ourselves if we can go without it. So maybe not using some materials. Reusing items slows the process of taking and disposing. We can reuse materials that were meant to be disposed of, giving them a second life, or we can choose materials that were meant to be reused and make sure that we take good care of them so that they can be used many more times. Recycling the materials of items keeps valuable materials in the materials economy and lets us skip environmental disastrous extraction processes of raw materials which benefit the economy and the planet. The remaining of the options include energy recovery and then landfill disposal as the less desirable of the options. Through this process, we will be also looking into these solid waste management streams, and we are calling them solution categories. We have the first one is extended producer responsibility. And this means the manufacturers and our distributors are compelled to address impacts of their own products on the waste stream. EPR also extends to retailers, consumers, and a state and local governments' existing infrastructure to find effective solutions. Government programs and subsidies includes revision to existing statutes and adjustment to existing state programs and personnel, implementing new government regulations and/or prohibitions. Examples include advanced disposal fee, deposit program, or expanded government services. Free market solutions includes identification of new or expanded local market opportunities for recycling, considers Hawaii's remote geography and related logistic and infrastructure challenges. Outreach and education. It includes the identification of potential outreach and education opportunities. Less wasteful opportunities. This includes the identification of less wasteful opportunities as the title states. So the first one, extended producer responsibility. The extended producer responsibility here falls in the consumer. So we could see that several of the states that we have reviewed, including the state of Hawaii, had a tire disposal fee that the consumer must pay at the time of purchase. So we see that as an extension of an EPR program, but not necessarily by the manufacturer, but by the consumer. We skipped one.
I'm going to back up.
Yeah, we skipped this one. I don't know why I ended up with this one. So just a little bit more definition on EPR. So according to the US, oh no, never mind, sorry. Lost track. Let's go to government programs and subsidies.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. So government programs and subsidies, the state will explore updates or improvements to existing infrastructure, policies and regulations, grants, outreach and education opportunities. Next slide. These government programs include things like retailers take back old tires. In Hawaii County, tires are collected at local Department of Health Services permitted facilities, automobile service centers, and convenience centers. In the state of California, they have the tire fee, same with the state of Colorado and Washington. So according to the US Manufacturer Association, roughly 76% of scrap tires in the United States enter end-use markets, with the largest being TDF. Secondary to this market are markets for ground rubber, such as used in playgrounds, civil engineering, roadway fill, as Joaquin mentioned, and other smaller projects. Other potential options for free market solutions include TDF, tire-derived products, tire-derived aggregate, and also tire retreading. Due to the potential environmental impacts of improper end-of-life tire management, it is important to have a dedicated education and outreach program that targets both retailers as well as customers who purchase or replace tires. In many cases, this is done through fact sheets, state of Hawaii has a fact sheet that provides information. California has a website with significant amount of information for both consumers and retailers. Counties, Hawaii counties have tire recycling education programs, solid waste management education awareness programs. They also offer tire recycling web page. In Colorado, they have waste tire drop-off events. In Washington, they have dedicated tire waste management websites. So it seems like the trend is to just provide information through online services first. And if you could reach out with other types of programs like recycling events, those are also being offered by some jurisdictions. Resource reduction alternatives. In Hawaii, most transportation occurs through private and commercial passenger vehicles, shuttle services, taxis, rental cars, or public transportation services, such as the bus. There is no current rail or light rail system in Hawaii to move passengers. However, in Honolulu, Authority for Rapid Transportation is in the process of constructing a driverless urban light metro rail system in Oahu. This 20-mile rail system will have 21 stations as a part of the system and is expected to be completed in 2023 or later this year. So hopefully we'll see. So resource reduction alternatives in Hawaii support public transportation options that reduce the use of personal vehicles in travel. Hawaii counties, as I previously mentioned, is working on a rapid light rail system. Other options is use of alternative options. The use of carbon black might also be a way to reduce some of the raw materials for tires. And then there might also be some alternatives to to rubber, so that could be another option. And that concludes my presentation. So thank you.
Thanks, Cesar. I want to commend you for getting us back on meeting time track and boogieing through your presentation. That leaves us with a solid 30 minutes to have discussion. So, and that's why we've convened this meeting, is to have our guests absorb what you've shared and share thoughts back to the team to continue developing the plan. So our prompting question on the screen is to share your thoughts on the solutions presented, and I keeping it on a more positive question to prompt you. In your opinion, what do you feel shows the most promise based on your knowledge and experience? And Sunny, if you can help me monitor the chat and hands raised, I'd sure appreciate it.
Yep, will do.
Okay, great. We'll let people raise their hands or chat. I don't know if there's any comments from the task force members that are in the room. See none. Okay, so just to, at my own expense of showing
There's a hand raised.
There's a hand raised. Okay, sorry. Great. I was just going to start making up questions to keep to prime you all. So I think I saw Allison.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, Joaquin. I found it interesting that we're one of the only states that doesn't have, a fee in place. And I think there is opportunity for legislation to come into play here to create those solutions. And so I wanted to make that comment because, we are banning tires, but we don't have, a mechanism to have programs or for the retailers to recover their costs. Well, we do have, that law where they have to charge a small fee, but it doesn't say what the fee is, as I understand. and that fee goes straight to the retailers. But there's right now, as it was shown on the slide, there's no fee that goes to the state to actively manage this challenge.
Thanks, Allison. Additional comments, feedback? Solutions that show the most promise? Chemo, thanks. Go ahead. Oh, sorry, you're muted.
Okay, I'm puzzled. Is the problem we're trying to solve A, illegal dumping, which the woman from Kauai said is not a problem there? B, tires still going into the landfill? C, not enough tires are collected properly, or D, tires that are being collected are not being reused or repurposed somehow in Hawaii, or E, they're not being repurposed in a meaningful way elsewhere where they're being exported. Which of these potential problems are we trying to address here?
Is there a G, all of the above?
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, is that where the plan goes?
Yeah, I think, and Kibi will have to take that question. I think you're right, Katie. It really is a G, all of the above. There may not be as big of a problem legal dumping in like an island of Kauai, but unfortunately we could not show that video where in Honolulu, City County Honolulu, illegal dump sites are a problem. And not having a dedicated fee source to help collect, manage, and oversee this is an issue. I wanted to get back and take a step back as well. We've also talked about the existing data gaps and the importance of having proper tracking mechanisms. So that's another issue. But I did want to clear up a question, Kima, I believe you had asked earlier about why there was a discrepancy of the 1 million number that we were reporting earlier versus 720,000. That's not an apples to apples comparison or number. The 1 million is the number of tires that were imported into the state. The 720,000 was an estimate of the number of tires that may need to be replaced due to normal wear and tear. So again, trying to have that, the data sources match, you can't really do it. But in Hawaii, it really isn't all of the above that you mentioned. There's issues with illegal dumping. There's issues with reporting. There's issues with how we collect the data, and we're going to address all of those in our draft plan. So those will all be addressed. But again, there's not a one size fits all. And there is an opportunity, as I see it, to sort of help the state move forward with understanding what that big picture is, and then sort of narrowing it down and providing solutions based on what other states may or may not be doing at this point. Mrs. R, did you want to add anything to that, or?
No, I think that's fine. Thank you.
And Mike?
No, I mean, and I guess to add to Christian, approximately, the 300,000 tire variant is because of the new vehicles that are coming in, as opposed to a replacement tire that generates a used tire.
Okay, so something that can just be clarified in our reports. I will turn the mic to Ruta, who has a question or a comment.
Thank you. Yes, that was a lot of information for all of us to be able to digest in a short time. And what I'm thinking is, I would like to start at the end and say what I would like to see at the end is that we no longer ship our tires off island, that we find ways to use them on our each island as would be helpful to that island, because what we got from that presentation was that there is so much that we could be doing with those tires. And I'm just thinking about our roads here on Kauai and the hills that are surrounding those roads. All of those would be helped by some of the things that were shown to us today. So that, let's start with the end product should be that we use them here on our own islands, that each island knows what is most needed on it. But we now know all those things that can be done with tires to make them useful again in different ways. And then come up with the legislation or each island's council can come up with what's needed. But I think the Hawaii Solid Waste Management Plan should say the tires should stay on island and they should be used. Thank you.
Thanks, Rita, for your comment. Any other solutions that were presented that you'd like to speak to? Go ahead.
Data related question. I was wondering, would it be helpful to collect data from the retailers about how much they charge? So Costco and Lexpro each could have different fees. Some might not have any fee. It might be good to have a better handle on what those are and outreach to the retailers and gather some information. And that might help inform the legislative process, being able to introduce legislation and pass a bill for state.
Yeah, that's an excellent question, and we actually had brought that up. Unfortunately, that was beyond our scope to look into. What feedback that we received from talking to people was they may not be interested in providing us that information. A lot of these private retailers and wholesalers, they don't want to give that information out from what we've understood because they sort of consider that proprietary and they don't want to be in competition. If they're charging more, then another store down the road could maybe charging less. But that's exactly the kind of information that we need in order to help fill in some of these data gaps. So that's an excellent question.
Interesting. Thank you. Any other thoughts on solutions presented? Or, oh, Christine, you had a comment that you'd like to add?
I just wanted to add in terms of the reporting, and, I think what we found is there is, a lack of data, and, that would be, I think, the first step, trying to improve on that data collection, and especially from the retailers. But in addition to what they're charging, try and find out where they're sending their materials, how much they're collecting. There's a lot there that I think is missing in terms of, what the real problem is or what the real situation is that needs to be managed here.
Thanks, Christine, for that addition. And then I would just, I'll just verbalize Allison's comment that the cost of the infrastructure for recycling tires into aggregate is a concern for smaller counties, probably all of the counties. So just one of those considerations when considering the solution that Ruta was pointing out is like, how do we actually convert these things from tires into useful products in our small island economies? So just to keep things challenging.
Katie, you have two more raised hands.
I see. Yes.
Just
Mike's
really
going to add one more comment.
As we're talking about solutions, in an ideal world, we're going to come up with a solution to actually address the solid waste topic. But I think that, one of the things that have been, that has been popping up throughout this process with tires is just the lack of data, the reporting data. And so it could be that that's the solution. Insofar as what gets put into the ISWM plan, in an ideal world, we're going to implement, a new tire fee, a state tire fee. We're going to, have all these programs that are going to address all the tire issues. But the reality is before we can get to that, we need a better handle on the data that underlies those assumptions. And so the solution then, as part of the ISWM plan, is that the state shall, cobble together legislation and put it up as an administrative package to the state legislature to start the process of compelling the retailers, for example, to report to us so that we can start a database to collect that data that will then better inform our decisions in the future. That's one thing to kind of think of as we discuss solutions. Sorry, Kimo, I know you had your hand up for a while, so I jumped in ahead of you.
Kimo, go ahead.
This is what I'm baffled about, what you just said and what Christine talked about. Department of Health has the legal authority now, and the retailers and all these people are supposed to be reporting it to you already. 342I-23 is law. The dollar fee may have gone away, and maybe when that happened, everyone at the Department of Health got deflated like a flat tire, but the law is still there. These guys are supposed to be giving you all the data that you guys. What you guys need to do is remind these people that they are required to be providing it to you. It says right in the law. I don't understand. I don't understand your lack of data at all. Sorry, it's 342I-26. It's in black and white. Why are you guys not getting this data that's legally required to be provided to you? You don't need any legislation.
Okay, so follow-up question to the team on just the breakdown there. Or the gap, what is the barrier?
There's no barrier.
Thanks.
There's no barrier.
Well,
okay, I'm sorry. Where's the breakdown here? So let's put that on the record that question has been asked. And it's an important one to be followed up on. Nicole?
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. Thank you all for all the information. It is a lot to process. I'm still wrapping my mind around some questions and solutions and feedback. Maybe building a little bit off of what Kimo shared, I've in other work done, went through great effort to try and get recycling data from the state and counties to be told that most of it would be redacted and it's protected as proprietary business information. And it seems mostly to be the recycling brokers that are lobbying for that. And so I guess a recommendation, an observation from experience is if there, I don't know, Kimo said the legislation's already clear, but it seems like if we do need additional legislation, it's targeting the brokers. And I guess a question perhaps for the state is how do we balance the obligation for transparent information for public good with proprietary business information when we're discussing these public services? It's kind of a big question, but are there protocols or mandates we can point to when it comes to differentiating between protecting a private business interest and ensuring that the public good is being put first, since that's the state's responsibility?
It wouldn't be difficult to aggregate the data, so there's no confidentiality issue. The question is Department of Health getting any of this information? You guys in the room who work for the Department of Health, have you guys seen any of these reports? Lane?
Yes.
You guys have?
I'm sorry, what is the question?
You guys get any of these reports that are required under 342I-26? You guys getting this information?
Yeah, yes, we do. Well, but we know that there are known gaps in the data too.
Did you give this data to Tetra Tech for their report?
Yes, yeah.
So I don't understand why I just don't understand why we don't, this requires you to get this information. Are you telling me that retailers are not providing you the information?
Or we know that there's not complete data, right? So, I mean, that's one area that we can improve on in the future.
So, yeah, okay, we understand it's not complete. Are you saying it's the retailers who are not providing it, the wholesalers? Who is not giving you these reports that are legally required?
Well, we get data from the collectors and also from the retailers, but there's gaps on both sides.
So if you know there's gaps, you know who's not reporting, you have an enforcement mechanism.
It's
Part of the challenge.
I just don't see how legislation is.
The challenge is just in the personnel, right? I mean, I hate to bring it up as an excuse, because every state, every government agency uses lack of resources as an excuse. But at the end of the day, when it comes to sifting through and comparing the list of retailers versus the list of retailers that reported, and then, conducting the enforcement on that, there is no funding mechanism. And so it's figuring out who is going to do the work and how they're going to get paid to do the work. And so I think that circles back to perhaps reinstating the youth hire fee as a way to beef up, establish a position so that there's an opportunity, then somebody can go out on inspections for illegal dumping sites, as well as conduct that background report checking to make sure that the data gaps aren't missing. But as far as just the office has been, since the fee sunset in 2006, I mean, the people that are here in the office today, no one was here from back then, with maybe the exception of Lane. And it's just, unfortunately, the turnover, things have fallen through the cracks.
And who's your deputy AG?
Wait.
Well, I can give him a hard time because you guys, if you guys take action, you guys, you all science and pen. So you just get one of these retailers who's not providing you data, and you sue them, and you force them to pay the fine. It's going to raise alarm bells with all the other retailers. They better be. All you need is to do one test case.
We don't.
Katie, just want you to know that Allison has raised her hand.
Okay, thanks, Kimo. It sounds like you've hit on an important issue for follow-up. Very good. Okay, so the hand raised was Allison?
Hi, it's
Allison.
me. So I just want to note that, the tone is getting a little hostile here, and Kimo, you have good points, but I just wanted to thank the state for being honest about the issue of staffing. I don't know if that was Michael. I can't see what's going on here, but that's the truth. The state's been, and counties too, are very challenged with staffing. So it's very difficult to run these programs when you don't have people in charge of them. So that's just, thanks for being open about that problem. It's tough to admit,
Okay.
Nicole had, I'm sorry, Katie. Nicole had just rephrased her question in the chat.
Right. Nicole had rephrased her question.
I guess to be even more direct there, in the past when I've requested information that DOH does have about the High Five recycling program, for example, and that information is available, and I imagine there's quite a bit of tire information available, but because it's proprietary business information, the state then has to spend the time redacting it, which was going to cost them money and me money. So is that a law, this proprietary business information clause, and why are we working around that so much? Who defines proprietary business information? Is it defined in statute?
So HRS 92F is our public records. It's like the state equivalent of the Freedom of Information Act. There is division about what's private and what's confidential, and some of it's interpretive. I think you're probably correct that it is the proprietary claim is bogus, but you probably don't need the actual letter or form submitted to you to the DOH by a particular recycler. What you want is the aggregate data for your county, which you would think the Department of Health at least has that in the spreadsheet. I mean, I don't know if you're looking at the granular detail, but by county analysis, DOH should have that.
Yeah, Kimo, just to follow up and in answer to that, yeah, it's the confidential business information is classified as such according to 92F. And, you know, we work with our attorneys at the Attorney General's office to confirm those kinds of decisions. But going back to like one of your earlier comments or questions, Nicole, is that, you know, is the data available for decision-making purposes? And that goes back to also, I think, Kimo's earlier comment where that, yes, we do aggregate the data. It's not a problem for us to aggregate the data. It's just we don't give out numbers for individual businesses because you know, it's classified as confidential because for competitive purposes. But for decision-making purposes, when we're testifying at the legislature, or even for most data requests, really, you know, people are able to use the aggregated data. And, you know, the more fine grain we can get it, sometimes it's helpful, right? It's, for example, if a county is working on a program and trying to get a handle of carving out a specific, you know, their specific portion in this larger stream, you know, we'll do that if we can, if our data allows us to do that. But yeah, it goes back to the aggregation thing.
Thanks, Lane. Okay, thank you all. I think we found a tender spot amongst ourselves. So we'll do what we can as your consultant support to support you all in working this out. Christine, you had another comment?
You know, I just wanted to say that these are similar circumstances that we've encountered with work that we've done for other states in terms of, you know, being able to aggregate data and not, you know, provide specific information or data on particular businesses. And then the other with laws that, you know, our legislature passes that have requirements on businesses, but then don't have really funding for local agencies or state agencies to really follow through and enforce. And if there aren't any enforcement mechanisms, you know, in those laws, that makes it even more difficult. And even when there are, you still need staffing behind it to implement that enforcement. So just wanted to add that is not a unique situation in the state. And, you know, we see that challenge in a lot of other jurisdictions that we work in. That was it.
Thanks, Christine. Mahalo. We're at 11:30 and we've had a small group here. So we've been just kind of open with the chat and talking, you know, collectively. We did reserve some time for public comment for anyone else that hasn't chimed in or wanted to to share. If there are any other additional questions or comments that folks have, we would welcome them now. And you can either raise your hand or put your question in the chat if there is any. Okay.
Katie, there are quite a
Yes.
few questions or comments in the chat that we may not have mentioned in the meeting, but we will be following up and addressing those. Just wanted everyone to know if we haven't specifically answered any of your comments in the chat, we intend to do so.
Thank you for acknowledging that, Christine. Yes, I know that Sunny's taking notes. We're recording, and I've been copying all the chat, the longer comments, HRS citations and whatnot into a Word document myself for our meeting notes. And yes, so we will we'll keep all the comments that we've received in the chat and do our best to respond to them in some way that can get reported back out to you all. The other thing that I wanted to share is if anyone wanted a copy of the PowerPoint, I can certainly get that to you in a PDF format post meeting. I heard several comments that this was a lot of information to digest, so it might be helpful if you'd like a copy of the PowerPoint that we could make that available to the task force members, and we can do that. Okay, I'm going to just say
any follow-up with potential PIG meeting or anything like that, how would that be initiated?
During the meeting, right? I mean, if the task force comes to a point or realization that more in-depth discussion, follow-up discussion is required, then you can go ahead and form a permitted interaction group. So that would be meeting by meeting.
Yeah, so that's another opportunity for if anyone is interested in just having more discussion, more follow-up. I think if that is requested through our chat or subsequent email, that's something to that we could entertain and possibly host.
Thank you, Cesar. So if that was not unclear, under the Sunshine Law, we can convene a smaller group or subset of the task force to have a permitted interaction group conversation to carry this a little bit further and more in depth. If the task force members that are present are interested in that, if you could please let us know, then we can work towards convening that conversation.
Katie, Ruta had her hand raised.
Oh, okay. All right.
I just wanted to ask, because I was a little bit confused as to the purpose of the discussion today. And I guess that's what you were just talking about also. Is the result of this day supposed to be what the task force recommendation is on tires and what they want put into the solid waste management plan? Because it feels to me like we're kind of up in the air right now. We've got a lot of information, but I don't feel any resolutions. Is today the day for tires and that's it?
Go ahead.
Not necessarily. Today is the introduction, and so we're having a task force to introduce the tires here at the first task force meeting. But we, as part of our work or contract, we have identified PIG meetings for follow-up discussion. In terms of what the resolutions would be, I would defer that to the state. I think we brought them some solutions or potential solutions based on items identified, including EPR, government programs and subsidies, free market solutions, outreach and education, and less wasteful solutions. So that's kind of the lens that we're looking into these solutions. And so I would defer to the state to provide whether solutions would be identified from this meeting or how those would be.
Ruda, honestly, I think that initially our hope, optimistic hope, would be to have developed or selected a solution today. This is the first time that we're doing this in 20 years. And so we weren't necessarily sure how long we would need and how it would go. And we thought tires was a relatively easy topic to discuss. So I think that in light of the fact that we're 20 minutes away from our scheduled end, and it would be great if, as a task force, one or two solutions could be identified, but also too, I think that, in our conversations today, we recognize that both here for us at the state in how we're looking at things, the information that we have that's given to us and where the gaps are. These are things that perhaps, warrant the need to look at having a follow-up meeting. Like we said, we did budget into the topics, the permitted interaction groups. And so I think that that's probably where we're going to go, unless, as a task force, it just, hey, it looks good to reinstate the fee and call it a day, and the state will have to go back to addressing the issues with illegally dumped tires.
I'd like to add that the state is probably not going to build infrastructure. That's probably guaranteed, but they could create policies and regulations that may require facilities or indicate that facilities are needed. So I guess in terms of the solutions that would be identified in the state's integrated solid waste management plan, those would be more in line with regulation and policy. At least that's my thought. And maybe, so regulation and policy to whatever might need to be done.
So I'll pose the question to the task force members that are present. Ahmad, Allison, Dominic, Glenn, Nicole, Christian, Kimo, Robert. Would you folks be inclined to do a follow-up permitted interaction group convening so that we could come back with some information, responses to some of these questions, and help drive towards a collective solution? Is that something that's of interest to the task force, or is your pleasure to have this team, the Tetra Tech team in the state, take what they've heard and put the information into their recommendations?
I guess I'm not clear, maybe others are. Task force that we're on, how often are we that are through every section of the plan? I don't understand the context really of your question. Do we need to have a pig when we're already meeting? I don't know how often. Maybe this becomes end of the agenda item to be picked up on as we're talking about other solid waste issues. Maybe something we talk about there will somehow tie into the tire issue, and we can dovetail those. Are you suggesting that we're not going to talk about tires again ever? I just don't know where we are.
Sure. the way that we've scoped this out, sorry, and we kind of saved this for the end of the presentation, and maybe we should have started with this. But the way that we've scoped this out is to dedicate a meeting of about this length to a number of topics. And I'll just kind of read through that. We're looking at lithium-ion batteries, photovoltaic panels, organics, construction waste, packaging, carpet, mattresses, and then reserving a meeting to talk about beverage container deposits and other DOH established programs. And then we've left one like placeholder meeting for another issue if the task force has identified, something that the Department of Health hasn't identified for us to work through. And so what we're looking to do is to present information at each of these meetings to you all and hear from your expertise and look to have Tetra Tech work on presenting recommendations to the state for the plan. But then, as Cesar mentioned, we did reserve budget and time and acknowledgement that some of these issues are going to require possibly a second meeting or additional meetings. And so allowing for time to reconvene to talk about specific issues. I think just meeting management wise, if the questions are pretty straightforward and we can just report back to you at the front end of the next meeting on, question A, B, and C, that's an option as well. So we could, at the next meeting where we're set to talk about batteries, we could potentially just reserve a little time to report back on some of the unanswered, open-ended questions related to tires. So that's an option too. And I guess when I lay out all of the topic areas, there's a lot of information to cover over many months. So I'll leave that to you folks for your consideration. Did that help, Kimo?
Yeah, it does. But it's interesting that those topics are important. But there's a whole lot of things that we don't seem to be talking about, which I would assume you'd want in your plan, whether it's green waste or regular garbage, or it seems like there's a lot of other items that would go in a plan.
Yes. Right. So we have green waste organics is intended to be covered. We're looking at that in towards the fall in October, at least in our kind of tentative forecasting. And as I mentioned, there are there is an open placeholder for any specific topics that weren't identified by the team in planning these task force meetings out. So I see that as a follow-up item for us is to kind of project out those topic areas better for you all. And we've been working internally on scheduling the team and trying to project out these meetings. So we can do better on keeping you informed on that as well as a follow-up. Oh, sorry. Hand up
Allison.
from Allison. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Just real quickly, I would be interested in talking more about tires. However, these all of these topics probably will lend themselves to more discussion. Maybe that's my concern is if we say, okay, yeah, let's have a pig discussing tires, but then the next meeting has more unresolved issues in the next meeting, and so I almost feel like it would be good to go through some of these meetings and as you're saying, report back, do notes, and then we can decide, which issues need the most work. Because it's hard to gauge just based on one meeting and one topic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? Does that feel right to others that are on the call? We can do a report back on what we can on unresolved issues, unresolved questions in our next meeting. And then, you know, if that's still feeling like there's more work to be done in a PIG meeting, then we could convene that. Does that? Nicole's,
And
I'm
I
being
think-
nodded head from Chemo, and Nicole says she likes that approach.
And I think it could even be out of order, like if we have the next task force meeting on batteries and all of us, somebody wants to go back to tires for a big meeting, I think we could do that as well.
Sure. Okay. Okay, cool. I'm seeing concurrence with head nods and chat comments. So let's plan on that. Let's try to have something to present back in our next meeting. We're looking at mid-late July to convene on lithium-ion batteries, just to give you a teaser for what's coming up next. And I can see from our team correspondence that we have we're still trying to set on a date there. So apologies, I don't have a date to offer you.
Okay, yeah, and just to add on that discussion, yeah, we haven't set the dates because yeah, we anticipate a little bit of this too, right? Like if we have big meetings to insert, you know, how that would affect, you know, sort of the follow-on meetings and the preparation for those meetings. So
right.
We might have to go meeting by meeting, possibly. Yes.
No, I was gonna say, well, since I had an interesting point, I don't think that we had thought about too, was just that.
Out of
you
order.
get
Yeah.
you get hopscotch.
Okay,
And
yeah.
have the main meeting still have.
We'll think it through because, you know, we want to give the group, everyone as much predictability as possible and stuff. So, yeah, we'll kind of think by going out of order with the pigs, that will still allow us to you know, prepare for the next upcoming meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
So right now we're this is my behind the scenes schedule. So we're projecting out through the rest of the year into the first half of next, staggering these meetings out every few weeks or every several weeks. So we'll do our best to align our schedules so that we can give you tentative dates to plan out the rest of this planned meetings, main meetings, and then as needed, if we need to convene permitted interaction group conversations, we can do that and backfill those in as we go. That was kind of the information that I wanted to cover at the end of our conversation. I was just kind of looking ahead at where this is going. So thanks for teeing me up, Chemo. Really appreciate everybody's comments and feedback. Were there any we've got a few minutes left.
I have one comment, just
comment from Cesar.
So when, as we do these, we provided a fact sheet for the state and then also a fact sheet for each of the counties. At the end of the fact sheet, we have an area where we are seeking your information. So anything you could provide, that'll also give us your thoughts even before we have the task force meeting and maybe prepare for some of those questions, issues you might identify in that section of the fact sheet. This round, we only received comments from Maui.
I think it was Maui.
The three other counties either did not see that item or it might have been hidden, who knows, but the last block of that fact sheet is for you counties to identify anything you could provide anything on what issues you see, what solutions you might see, and that'll help us prepare better for the task force meeting. Yeah.
Okay, so that, the process for that, just so I'm clear, is that you guys are preparing fact sheets for each topic area
Yeah.
in advance of these meetings. And you're sharing those draft fact sheets with both the state, Lane and Mike, and, as well as the county
Yes.
staff.
Yes.
So, so you're seeking their feedback just to make sure that you're getting things correct on, and then if they have anything additional to add, and then you'll finalize the fact sheet. And then share that with the task force.
Yes.
That's right. So you won't be sending the fact sheet drafts to the task force. They'll be seeing the final with the inputs, hopefully from our county,
State and county.
state and county, staff's input. So look forward, we'll try to make sure that we get those, fact sheets out to you in advance, with the agendas and, yeah, it's an opportunity to just kind of get, start priming yourself for these meetings, as well. So that's planned workflow for the consultant team leading into each of these meetings.
Yeah, and I'll just like to add that the county's done a great job of responding to our fact sheets and providing additional updates to their information. They've also done a wonderful job of sending us documentation that we've been asking for on some of the data sets, including, some of the H-Power stuff, some of the waiver disposal forms and stuff like that. That's all very helpful to us as we help put this together. So thanks to everybody for helping do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Mahalo for the support from the counties. Were there any other logistical questions that the task force members have for us that we could help make things smoother, and appreciate your participation. We want to make it as easy as possible for you.
There's a comment from Bob Schmidt. He said that they recently went through their update of the ISWMP, and they were presented a draft chapter by topic to review and comment on for the following meeting. Will that be something that we will do?
Well, at this point, I know these guys aren't drafting their chapters yet, and they're just preparing the background information. I think that's my observation of what is happening behind the scenes. So we're, the plan is not to be sharing chapter by chapter drafts with the task force. I believe the idea and the strategy on the consultant's part is to hear from the task force members earlier before they start drafting the work, so that they have your inputs as a basis for what is being written in the plan.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks for clarifying.
we're gonna have sections on recommendations, but obviously we wanted to hold off on that until we receive all the feedback from the task force and the potential PIG meetings as well. And this is why these meetings are so helpful for us.
Yeah. Thank you all for your contributions and your attendance and your time today. Thanks for folks that found Waimano home and endured the speed bumps up here. And for those of you who joined virtually, thanks for bearing with me as I juggle the technology. I hope that you were able to hear everything okay and see. And Sunny and I welcome any feedback. If you want to hit us up with any suggestions on what would have made your experience more engaging or better, please feel free to let us know, and we can do better work at, smoothing out any of the technology issues. Sorry, we couldn't get that video going for you. I just mahalo you all again for your time. Lane, go ahead.
Just to follow
Last
on
comment.
to what Katie was saying, after we log off, if anybody has any questions or comments, suggestions on logistics, how we can, make these meetings more efficient, send it in to PBR, to us directly. We'll discuss them, think it over. Obviously we try to plan it out as best we could. We know that we can't think of everything, so we are willing to be flexible. And so let us know. Let us know specific things that what you call can make the process better.
Okay, thank you, Lane. Yeah, we're glad to support you all in any way that we can. Important topics. So with that, I guess as the meeting manager, I'll call this meeting as a wrap, as a close. A little more time, and I wish you all a safe and healthy rest of your day and week ahead. And we'll be out with meeting notes and updated schedule for future meetings as soon as possible. Thank you for your time. Mahalo.
Great, thank you, Katie.
Thank you all.
Yep.